Spring is officially here, and that means the regular season of great gardening is underway. We're here to talk about sprouts, sprites, and some interesting miniatures for your landscape. Plus, a tour of a West Duluth garden sure to inspire, and a whole bushel basket of expert advice straight ahead on Great Gardening.
Once the plant is infected, there really isn't anything you can do about it.
The root flare is right along here, so we want to make sure that's below ground level.
Watermelons, muskmelons.
This is yellow or gray coneflower.
This one's called Picasso in pink.
Hello, and thanks for tuning into Great Gardening. I'm Pamela Fish, and I'm welcoming back our garden experts, Tom Casper, the president of the Duluth Garden Flower Society, and Bob Olin, a state and county educator and horticulturist. Thank you so much. Good to see you guys again.
It's our pleasure.
Nice to be here.
By the calendar, it is spring. But I know I can't get to my garden because of the snowbanks. How about you?
Well, in all honesty, I tried to shovel some of the snow off just to see what was underneath there. And
Did you see soil?
A little bit, but it was frozen, so we had a little frost penetration. So, yeah, we're getting off to a little bit late start, but I really think better this kind of a March than we had last year. Because well, it was so very, very warm. Do you remember the variegated cutworms we had?
Right.
All blew in. There never was a freeze. So this cold weather is good for something. So hopefully we can eliminate some of those insect pests with this kind of weather.
All right. Glad to hear it.
Yeah, you know, and March and April, great time to really be thinking about what you're going to be doing in the garden and really weaving that thread of what your garden's going to become. So
Get the plans underway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, also we welcome back and thank our phone volunteers, the master gardeners from St. Louis County. They generously donate their time to staff our telephone bank. So give them a call with your questions. The number's there on your screen. It's 218-788-2844, or there is a toll-free number to call as well. And we hope to hear from you. Well, the Great Gardening crew pulled up stakes this week to take part in the Arrowhead Home and Builder Show. And it started at the deck in Duluth Wednesday night. We were there live and in person, and we're going to be there with our booth all weekend long. It's located in the Lakes Pier Ballroom. Bob and Tom, you guys took some time out to meet with gardeners and answer their questions. We had some interesting ones, don't you think?
We did. And
we had a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Lots of folks dropped by. Very interesting and timely questions.
All right, and we're going to show you how that went coming up later in the show. So we'll have more from the home show coming up later. But right now we want to talk about some of the things you can do with gardening on a smaller scale. During our special in March, we shared some information about fairy gardens, which are so popular right now. But so are terrariums. Here's Tom now with more on that in this week's tip.
Terrarium care is different than let's say a traditional style of houseplant where you have the container. Really, because you don't have drainage and you oftentimes are really wanting those plants to slow down a little bit, you're not going to fertilize them as much. You're also probably not going to need to water them as much because you have a very confined space where air can get in and out of the plant. So you slow down your watering probably once every 10 days or so, depending on where you have it. If it's in a sunnier location, it's going to require more moisture, of course, than a shadier location, but doesn't need near as much water as a traditional style of houseplant. But many of the similar components, making sure you get timely water to it as it's drying out or as it needs it, and then also putting it in a location that it will do well in. You know, a glass structure like this, you probably don't want in a lot of direct sunlight because it will heat up significantly. So making sure it's in some direct light, but enough ambient light around in the room so it does well.
That was a cute one. I know a lot of people really getting into the terrariums that were popular ages ago.
Yeah, when we were young.
I know. And now my daughter's saying, oh, I want to make one of those.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun, and it's again another opportunity for people to be creative while they're gardening. So.
Yeah, and make something compact.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, as mentioned, Great Gardening is at the home show at the Duluth Entertainment and Convention Center this week, and we welcome some gardeners live and in person who pose questions to our experts.
My question is how to get rid of bamboo.
So Minnesota bamboo is actually a knotweed. It's Japanese knotweed. Very, very aggressive. And if folks aren't familiar with it, of course, it gets 8 or 9 feet tall, and the stalks get well over an inch
bigger than that.
in diameter. Very, very aggressive. Probably the best way to get rid of it is to move. No, I'm just kidding. You can treat it. Roundup with numerous applications, starting in the spring when it's about 12 inches tall, hitting it with that, and then cut it, and then you're going to get a regrowth, hit it again, and you're probably going to have to do that about 4 times, about every 3 weeks or so when you get that new growth, and it's going to knock it way back, but you're going to have to probably for about 2 years do that, and you should be able to get rid of it. Very aggressive.
We have this stuff growing in 3 or 4 different places around our property, and it just does. You can almost watch it grow.
Yeah,
it comes up that fast.
Very, very aggressive, difficult to control, but there are things that you can do.
We'll try that. Thanks, Tom.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I would like help with the slugs, knowing how to get rid of the slugs in my
Okay, you've got a slug problem,
I have
and
a huge
has
slug
it
problem.
reoccurred year after year?
Oh yes, yeah.
Then my guess is that it's kind of a moist area where they're...
It's a rock garden, shade garden, so it is really more. It holds the water. The soil
Yes,
doesn't drain
yes.
well, so yeah.
just a perfect
I've tried
environment for
lots of
slugs.
things, and so far it's just a losing battle.
Yeah, I can believe that. You know, slugs really are, they're really snails without shells. They really like an aqueous or real wet, moist environment like that. Are they doing a lot of plant damage? Damage
Yes.
to plants? Hostas in there and so forth?
Hostas in particular.
Yes. Really, if you could create some kind of a perimeter around the outside and eliminate them, keep them from moving in. Now, you could create a perimeter with materials like diatomaceous earth or even black poly, something that's hot that they don't want to, or moist that they don't want to crawl across. So you might be able to establish a perimeter around the outside so we don't get additional slugs coming into that environment, because that is going to be an ideal environment. Then you may have to, once you've got a perimeter established, you may have to eliminate the slugs that are in there if they continue to be a major problem. And we've got a number of, we do have a number of compounds that are labeled for use. They're not really approved for use on edibles, but you don't have any edibles
No,
there
this
anyway.
is an ornamental.
And if you didn't want to use any chemicals at all, then you could put shallow pans of either stale beer or yeast, that could be used as well, right at the ground line inside this shady area. And then they'd crawl in there, and of course they will drown, but in this case, if you're using the stale beer, they'll die a happy death if they're in it.
Okay.
I was wondering what kinds of crops would grow best on Farm Point.
Wow, you know, you have a really special soil condition there. It's almost all sand, so you really need stuff with deep roots. There's some shrubs like sand cherry that work well. Shrub roses, or some of the hardier shrub roses do well. Anything with a deep root will do well. Even daylilies will do pretty well for you. So yeah, it's pretty special conditions.
Yes.
Even some of the different trees, oak trees, if they can get that root deep enough where you get down to that moisture, will do pretty well. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have about 32 bales of straw that we used in our mound system this winter.
32 bales.
Yeah, and
Great.
I'm trying to figure out how to use it with a garden project I have, and then maybe do some composting. And not sure what to do with all of it.
It's become kind of an interesting technique that people are using. Typically, if you've got very poor soils, real heavy clay or bedrock or something like that, you can actually grow in the bales. But so I wouldn't break them down. I would take them out, and I'd plan on just growing in them. You're going to have to condition them with some moisture as well as with some fertility, and then you could actually transplant a lovely little tomato like this in there. And one of the advantages of that is, of course, you're not going to have to do any weeding. You're not going to have to be concerned about poor soils, because you're actually going to be developing your own organic soil in the process. Where if you've broken some of that straw down and you want to actually develop a layered system where you can actually build a garden soil, an organic soil, in layers above your existing soil. So I think actually with a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of assistance, you're in a pretty envious place with those 32 bales of straw.
Okay. Tom, I'd like to know, I have an apple tree that died, and I don't know exactly why. It was in the ground for about 6 years, and it produced one apple.
You know, it could be a couple different things. First of all, do maintain a mulch ring around the base of the tree. If you don't and you have long grass or something, that's really competing for both moisture and nutrients. So when you replace it, you'll want to make sure that you maintain probably a 3-foot mulch ring. Good organic mulch around it will help retain moisture, help provide nutrients for that tree as that mulch breaks down. The other thing, depending on the variety you chose, if it's on a standard rootstock, it can take 7 to 10 years before it will produce any apples for you. So when you go to replace it, look for something on a dwarf or semi-dwarf rootstock. Will produce apples faster, won't get as large, so it's easier to pick, and there's so many great like Honeycrisp or Zestar that are out on the market now that are outstanding apples and very hardy for our region.
I have a question about strawberries. I'm wondering how I keep the weeds out of my strawberry patch.
Weeds can be the perennial nemesis for strawberry growers, both commercial and home growers. The first thing that you want to think about before you put strawberry plants in the ground is eliminate all the weeds. So that might mean treating with a product like Roundup or glyphosate, or it might mean hand digging, or it might mean just covering that area for a year with poly or heavy cardboard, just to eliminate all the weeds to begin with. Once they're in there, particularly the perennial weeds, they're very difficult to separate from a strawberry patch.
Right.
So in many cases, you might consider establishing a new patch.
All right, we had a great time at the home show, and again, our booth will be back there throughout the weekend. But now back to our topic for this week's program. It's miniatures, and we have some really unique ones and fine examples to share here. This is bonsai, and it's an ancient art. It's East Asian, and literally it means tree in a container. Now this one here is called shimpaku. It's a phoenix graft where they use 2 different materials, and I'm going to just show you as I spin it. This piece back here is a Rocky Mountain juniper. It's literally hundreds of years old, that wood. And the man who made it, Dave Severson, the bonsai guy, said that while the wood died, he was able to graft this piece of juniper. It's a juniper whip that he started training within this 6 years ago. He put it into the crevice and then super feeds it in this growing box, and then he wired the plant and to reduce the length of the branches, pinches the foliage, and it's really an amazing way to train and to style, excuse me, and again, it's an art form, and as he says, it helps portray how nature endures when you can do something with a plant like this. We have another example I want to show you. This is a Northern Lights azalea.
Yeah,
this isn't the kind that you guys are used to seeing, though, is it?
No, not that size.
But this one is something that he got as a nursery reject, and he said he trained it, wired it, pruned it. It fell off a bench. He repotted it, and it's repotted every 3 to 4 years to constrict the roots, and then the leaves reduce by half size, and then he prunes it way back. But he said the one thing about this too is these need to be dormant. They need to winter over in 35 to 40 degrees, and then he waters it daily. And this little mud man too, that's something that's traditional in the bonsai. If you want to find out more about bonsai, which is another really great way to have a miniature garden, you can contact Dave Severson, and I think we have his website and his phone number. Have we already had that up?
Yeah, Dave is certainly an artist at this. He is quite the resource for northern Minnesota.
He is. He's just great at it, and again, a wonderful art form, a wonderful form of gardening, and very unique. And you can get a link to Dave's email too on our website.
Yeah, and he's so willing to share his love.
He loves to share. He's a wonderful educator and has some beautiful examples. Well, we do have callers' questions to answer. We'll get to that next. But first, here's a tour that we took last summer in a small garden with a very large variety of beautiful specimens.
My name is Gladys Goodell, and I live on West 6th Street in Duluth, and welcome to my garden. This started as a blank slate when I moved to my house, and it was December of '94, so I actually started in '95. Had one round cedar bush in front of the front porch, had that taken out, and began from there. Every year I dig up more yard. Buy plants, don't have room, you just dig up more yard. That is an Amaranthus, and it's an annual, I love it because it's very striking. I just think it looks just stunning in front of the front porch with the angel and the phlox, and you know, it just kind of draws your eye right to the front garden. You know, I'm not real scientific about what should go where, and I have a lot of things that should be planted elsewhere. So there's something flowering for all seasons. This is my mom cherry tree. My mother started this from a pit. She gave it to me when I moved to my house, so she gave it to me in '95. It has survived, and this year there were quite a few cherries on it. You know, they're pretty much gone now. There's one left right here, but they're Bing cherries, and they are tasty. I have a clematis growing up into the tree. It kind of hides the soil pile. Back there I have my raspberries and my vegetables, and then my little corner garden. It's still one of my smallest. There's a variety of lilies in here. Some have bloomed, some have gotten chewed off, and some are still blooming. I always have to have some nasturtiums in a pot because they're so good to eat, and they look so pretty on a salad. It was wonderful this spring when it was so cold out. I could just come out here and pot away and leave the plants in here. He suggested the little eyebrow windows, and I said, great. So I got my shed, and I'm pleased with it. And this year I bought the window boxes. Well, this started off as my white garden. And as you can see, there's other colors, pinks in here and some lavender. And it was pretty as just white, but it still needed a little bit of contrast. And then I have a coconut lime echinacea that is just, you know, very, very lovely. The hollyhocks are surrounded by lilies, and those are mainly the orange and the yellows, you know, the tiger lilies, some Asiatic lilies, some daylilies. That's the fun of gardening. Sometimes you find things that you don't expect to have in spots, and it looks so good, you just leave it. I thought a railing garden would be perfect for my herbs. So I have some parsley and cilantro, some thyme and rosemary and sage. And I love my little corner there. Often I'll sit on the porch there and my little chair there, and no one can really see me. It's a nice little place to read.
It was great to see Gladys, and she welcomed our bus tour as well.
Yes.
And then welcomed us back with the cameras.
What a great gardener Gladys is, and a great example of, even on a small lot,
right,
standard city-sized lot, she can go in and do wonderful things.
Yeah, really, really an inspiration for all of us. Beautiful. She's done a nice job, and you know, it's a continual thing. It's an additive thing. Year after year, things improve.
Absolutely.
The soils improve. You know, our plant collection improves. She did a beautiful job with it. Inspirational.
Right. Well, we have some questions coming in from our callers, and so we're going to get to those. Doris from Carlton wants to know what would be a good solution to a new yard invaded by moles.
Ooh, there's a question. I'd like to know for sure that they're moles, as opposed to voles. Moles actually are going to leave tunnels, and they're going to leave large deposits of soil. We have very few true moles in the area. A little farther south, they're a major problem. If they are in fact moles, then you really have to take some rather severe methods of controlling them. That's usually trapping them, and that may require either a professional, or she's going to have to study and get a couple of harpoon traps. I'll tell you this, the juicy fruit method of controlling moles doesn't work, because I've seen that done time and time again. You keep chewing and chewing and chewing and depositing in the tunnels, and supposedly they consume the chewed juicy fruit gum, and they somehow
well, I like juicy fruit gum.
It's a nice,
very fresh breath.
It's a nice idea, but I'll tell you, that one doesn't work.
And what if they're voles?
Well, if they're voles, the best thing you can do there is to trim the outside of, and these are very, very small. They'll run underneath the snow line. We have a lot of voles in the area, and they'll do quite a bit of damage to trees and leave tracks on the lawn, but it's up on the surface as opposed to down below. Best thing you can do there is trim around the outside of your lot and expose them, particularly during the growing season. There are a lot of natural predators that will reduce those populations. So mowing around the outside of your lot and keeping as much lawn as possible will control
Get a couple
voles.
cats?
Well, that'd probably do it too.
Okay. All right, Lisa from Duluth wants to know, and this is a question we're all dreading the answer to, is this going to be a year of tent caterpillars?
Probably not.
I don't
Maybe a
think so.
little bit, but
I hope you guys are right.
yeah.
Well, I've been out in the woods a little bit, but not over the entire area, and you generally get a pretty good idea if you can see the egg masses. I've not seen a lot of egg masses on aspen. Now, there are some parts of our listing area where they may have some infestations. We are getting closer, but not this year.
Another
as far
year
as I
or
can
two,
see.
probably.
All
And
right.
we're going to take that year off.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Joanne from Floodwood says, and we had a strawberry question before, but she says the deer ate the leaves from her strawberry plants last fall. Will they come back? And also, when should I remove the straw?
Okay, boy, when they're going to remove the straw, if I knew when the snow was going to melt, I'd have a little better idea there. Generally, as a rule of thumb, we look about end of April, early May to remove the straw. And as far as eliminating the leaves, if they've just bunched leaves, haven't gotten to the actual growing point, which is the crown, which is just right typically above the ground, then they will come back, but she's going to have to spend an entire year growing it out. So I get a little fertility on early, right after they're emerging, and then let them go for a year, and the harvest should be good again for the next year, provided the deer don't do the same thing this fall.
All right, thanks. Well, while fairy gardens are a really popular trend right now, in this week's Grow and Show feature, we have some that have been around for a while. Here's proof fairy gardens are not a new phenomenon. These sprites and sprouts have been in the gardens of Taylor Warnes for at least a dozen years. Taylor is a UMD student and intern here at PBS North who says when she was a little girl, her mom started small gardens between the trees in their Shoreview yard so the fairies would have somewhere to live. From there, it became a family project with gnomes, toadstools, and tiny living spaces throughout the plantings. Taylor's brother creates many of the clay sculptures that liven the landscapes. If you have pictures of your garden to share, either diminutive or vast, send them by email to greatgardening@wdse.org or mail them to 632 Niagara Court, Duluth, Minnesota, 55811. Okay, again, an interest in small things. Here's another example of a fairy garden that Tom brought in for us, and tell us a little bit about that one.
Well, yeah, it's really all about having fun in the garden, whether we're doing it on a large scale and we're growing massive plants, trees, things like that, or we're doing it on a small scale. It's really about expressing our interest and our joy in gardening. And you can see we have just a nice little fairy garden. This one's actually a gnome garden because it's got a little gnome in it, but
adorable.
Yeah.
Will those plants stay small?
Most of the plants in here will stay relatively small. Other ones will get rather large over time. So it gives you the opportunity to take them out, plant them somewhere else in a container, and add new plants every couple of years. But again, it's a wonderful opportunity for us as gardeners, for folks as gardeners, whether they're well experienced in it or just getting started to have fun. So.
All right. Well, we have time for just a few more questions, even though we still have some coming in. Ruth from West Duluth wonders if this is the best time to prune her apple tree or hope a crab tree.
It's the absolute best time. So she should be out there now and prune them up, whether they're young, and that's what we always encourage to get good structural strength, or whether they're a little older and they need to be opened up. Great time. The other quick thing you might want to do is still protect from sun scald, because this heavy snow blanket we've got and the very intense light right now can cause a lot of sun scald. A little latex bait on the south side would be the answer right now on a warm day.
Okay.
Great tip, Bob.
Irene from Ashland wants to know if the royal flowering polonium, I guess it's also called the princess tree, if it would grow in northern Wisconsin.
Well, Ashland and Bayfield are kind of unique little areas and has a better chance. I know some folks who have tried it with some success, so she could certainly give it a try. The closer she is to the lake, the better chance she'll have to survive. Ashland, a little cooler than Bayfield, but certainly as you get towards that peninsula, it warms up a little bit as those cold winter
It's
temps.
typically like a zone 5
5
tree?
Yep.
Okay. One more question really quick. Bob, this isn't a quick one. I'm planning to start an asparagus garden. What would be good plants to place beside the asparagus, vegetables or fruit? Maybe that is a quick one.
You know, I don't think it matters too much. The critical thing really with asparagus, a couple things. Eliminate all the perennial weeds right from the start, full sun and good drainage.
Okay.
And then a little space around them, then it doesn't matter too much. But that's going to be your perennial bed that you're not going to disturb.
All right. Well, before we go, we have an item from our calendar. It's the Spring Garden Extravaganza at Hermantown High School on Saturday, April 20th. Couple of interesting, unique things to talk about there, Bob.
Yeah, we're going to show people what they can do in small yards to really grow much of their own food. Joel Karsten, who's now become a national expert on straw bale gardening, came from a farm down in Worthington, Minnesota, and wound up down in Roseville with small lots. So he developed the straw bale techniques. Also going to talk about layering and lasagna gardening and containers, something on bee-friendly lawns and succulents. So we got a lot of activity for whatever your interest might be.
Sure. And you know, we had a question earlier at the home show too about straw, and you talked about lasagna gardening. Just tell us real quickly what that means. To me, it means pasta.
Yeah, it's not exactly. It really means layering. The straw bale, obviously, you're going to drop a bale of straw in. You're going to actually condition the bale so that you can drop in a tomato transplant. So if you got poor soils, or if you want to do it on your patio or something, it's kind of like instant gardening with a lot of tilling. The lasagna gardening, again, is kind of a novel name for that, but it really is layering organic materials and creating a bed that you can grow other plant material in. So they're both rather unique, they're kind of fun, and for many people, actually, they serve a very practical purpose.
All right. Well, is the snow going to melt this week?
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
If we don't get more.
Yeah, we shall see. Thanks, you guys. Great show tonight. We want to thank again our phone volunteers from the St. Louis County Master Gardeners, our garden experts, of course, Bob and Tom. We also want to remind you that we do have a link to right there on your screen to our website, and we have information from this show and other information to share with you about gardening. It's wdse.org/shows/gardening, so go there for more information. We'll be back next week to talk about summer bulbs, but again, thank you to all of you who called in, and we will be at the home show throughout the weekend, so we want to remind you of that as well. From all of us here, thanks for watching, and enjoy the garden.